about 65 years ago. So let's start adding up and see what you come up with. After graduating from Boonville High School in 1965, so he is a native of our great county here. John attended Evansville College, leaving UofE to enlist in the U.S. Air Force. Becky and John were married while John was still in the service in 1969. During their 53-year marriage, they have raised 3 sons. I have something in common with you all. I raised 3 sons.
You didn't have like 3 if you weren't born.
No. And 2 grandsons. So we don't know how to make little girls. He has been active in the Tri-State Genealogy Society since 1981. That's 42 years. Serving 10 one-year terms as president over those years, as well as several other offices and committees. He's a member of the Sons of the American Revolution for over 45 years, serving as president in chapters of Indiana and Kentucky societies. Also, he has served as Indiana Society Vice President of District 4 and State Historian. John was very proud to serve as an Indiana State Fair judge in the 4-H Genealogy Project for 7 years, as well as a judge in 6 local county fairs over about 8 years. John was a county coordinator for several counties in Kentucky and Indiana for the U.S. Gen Web Project. That's amazing. He was elected as World Coordinator for the World Gen Web Project in 1999. He was appointed the City Manager of Evansville City Cemeteries of Oak Hill and Locust Hill Cemeteries from 1999 to 2000, where eventually he was dubbed Indiana Bones, a cemetery geek, by the Evansville Courier and Press.
I wear that proudly.
He has created and maintained 2 genealogical blogs, several web pages, and DNA pages for the West family. So I'm proud to present to you John West on genealogy. Is it skill or luck? So, thank you.
Come get up now. What did I do, Vanessa? Get it on my... I brought my own publicity chairman here. She records everything I do. Testing 1, 2, 3. Is it working? I'm good? Okay. All right. Actually, the title is Genealogical Research Skills versus Just Plain Luck. Because all my genealogy work is, I probably should have used my research skills, but I ended up being lucky enough not to have to do that most of the time. Okay, I'm getting old enough, as you probably can guess, that I have to wear something to read. By the way, I've got some good friends here. The Vanetta and her husband Jerry. Jerry is a compatriot of my SAR chapter. In fact, I recently roped him into being chapter president, and I don't think he's talked to me since. But we finally got Dan to do it, right? Dan's a nice guy. He's a minister. He has to try to be nice. But anyhow, our ancestors wore many hats throughout the generations, and currently I'm wearing one for for Memorial Day weekend holiday. My family, like many of your ancestors, might have been farmers. Now here's where we have a little fun, changing hats. And we'll probably get these all mixed up, so you can go ahead and laugh if you want to, but it never hurts me too much. Before I forget it, Nancy Marshall over here, one of your members, is from Selvin, where I grew up as a kid. And I went to Selvin School, and she went to Selvin School too. And one of her brothers, one of many brothers, was in my class, Bob, who passed away, about a year ago, who was a good friend of mine. I really hated him having to pass away. Because I don't have too many friends, so it was one less. But Bob was a good guy. He really was. And I didn't know Nancy, but my older brother was a year or two older than you at Selvin. He graduated there in 1959. Yeah, they closed the school down in 1962. And there was 13 of us in the class, and we ended up going all over the place. We went to 5 different schools. Yeah, well, I went to Dale High School, and a lot of them went to Tecumseh, as they call it now. It was Linville back in our day. Then some went to Boonville, some went to Holland, and it was crazy. So I lived in the same house and went to 3 different high schools because I ended up going to Boonville. They decided not to pay tuition to Spencer County, so they decided to send us over to Boonville. So I graduated from Boonville in 1965. So I got to go to high school 2 years there. So that was pretty cool. I liked Boonville High School. It was cool. It's just around the corner, isn't it? And I like this library too. This was fairly new to me. But anyhow, we was mostly tobacco farmers. Most of our ancestors were. And that's why so many of us didn't live very long, because we had heart attacks at a young age. Smoking. Okay, where am I at here? But then I hope I don't get choked by this. You have insurance, right? Okay, never mind. If I'm lucky. Most was just plain farmers from Maryland, Virginia, and North Carolina that came to Indiana and Kentucky about 1800. And I got my Kentucky straw hat here. Most of my ancestors were Kentuckians. Yay. We were from Hopkinsville area, Christian County. Yeah, Campbellsville is in Tennessee, right? Oh, I have no idea where that's at. That's somewhere in Kentucky. There's a lot of places in Kentucky. Okay, they came after serving in the Revolutionary War. And Jerry, I got my little hat here if I can put it on right. You know, this is the only way it'll fit. If I try to turn it around the other way, it won't fit. Although they had quite a bit of land and in earlier times had slaves, many were not well educated nor interested in doing anything other than farming and hunting. This is why I have to have an assistant. There we go. Or fishing. You'll like this one, Nancy. I don't know whether you can read it or not. Can you read it from there? Selvin Fishing Club, the Yellow Banks. Yeah, we had a camp out there at Yellow Banks, or my younger brother did. He passed away in 2000, January the 3rd in 2000, so I inherited his camp. It was pretty nice. I loved it. Some of my ancestors were Irish, the Martin and the Gardner families. This is how my hat started, was with this hat right here, for luck. I'm not sure where I got all my great luck. Perhaps we have a leprechaun or two in the family tree, and I think we do. Whether you are a farmer, now this is where it gets fun. Oops. Cowboy, or even a leprechaun. This is supposed to be just kind of a little humor to go along with my program. I have learned that in genealogical research you need to develop good scientific techniques. Ancestry.com, I don't know whether you've seen this commercial or not, has a TV commercial that says, "You do not need to know what you are looking for, just start looking." Well, I disagree. That would just be leaving everything to luck. You should know what you want to learn about your family, where to look, what is available, and evaluate what you find. A detective's mentality is a key to your success because you must always keep an eye out. Can you get that in the camera? Keep an eye out. Did you all see that? Okay. I don't know where we got that. That was one Halloween. Keep your eye out for clues and be able to put seemingly unrelated facts together to establish theories as to where to look next. From there, you should be able to do a good job as a researcher. However, possessing some simple luck with that is essentially essential to being a great genealogist. I suspect everyone here has had some lucky moments that has helped with their lives. Let me tell you about some of my lucky experiences. Thank you, Becky. That's all right. Thank you. That was to let her, she's done. Take a bow, Becky. My dad grew up in Christian County, Kentucky, and everyone there knew that the courthouse was burnt down during the Civil War. Dad knew enough about his family to go back to about the time of the Civil War, but could not go back any further. Several years after Dad had died, I needed to see an attorney in Hopkinsville who just happened to have his office right across the street from the courthouse. As I was walking out of his office, I noticed this large brass historical marker. You've probably seen those all around the United States, by the courthouse door. It described the events of that Civil War raid that burned the courthouse to the ground, just like my dad had said. However, the plaque further stated that the citizens got advance word of the raid and removed all the records from the building, saving them complete back to when Christian County was formed in 1797. Lady Luck was with me. I had not ever done any courthouse or other genealogical research other than asking my relatives questions and visiting some cemeteries. The county clerk there advised using the probate records and looking up my furthermost known ancestor, who was William Ellis West, Dad's great-grandfather. I went to the first entry listing him and found him with his brothers and sisters, whom we already knew about from county history books. It seems they were the heirs of their fathers. Jesse West's share of the estate inherited by Jesse's deceased father, Charles H. West, one of the children and heirs of Thomas West. Now, if you were counting, that was 3 more generations that I didn't know about. I could not believe that genealogy could be this easy. Now, that's the first few minutes I was there. I told the clerk of my great find, of course. An older lady researching there asked who my family was. She told me about Shirley West Kane, who knew all about the West in the area. Shirley confirmed all that I had found as being my family. And she also said that Thomas West was, I could get into the SAR, because she was in the DAR. I could get in the SAR through him. So to me, that was a lucky day. Dad's birth certificate, 1918, was destroyed when the health department, I still got some chicken in my mouth, so excuse me. It just keeps wanting to come up and get in the way. By the way, it was a great meal. Thank you. His certificate was destroyed when the health department building burned down around the early 1920s. So we had some things to try to destroy our family records. When the Social Security Act became law, Dad needed a birth certificate. So his mother signed an affidavit providing the needed information for his proof of birth for what they called a delayed birth certificate. Years later, Mary Lou Beavers, a member of the Tri-State Genealogical Society, told me about the Henderson Courthouse had ledgers of all the births and deaths recorded in the state capital. I looked through all the rest names first. There was Dad's name. I was shocked. We thought his certificate was never sent to the state and it was lost due to the fire. I sent off for it and got a certified copy of his original birth certificate. Dad never knew that it was available, or he wouldn't have had to pay an attorney to do that delayed birth certificate. This was probably just another false assumption, like in the case of the courthouse. But since I had not been searching for either situation, it was just plain luck. To avoid this type of problem, I suggest as genealogists, we should not assume records were lost or destroyed until we prove they are not available. And even then you might find they're still there. While I was in Henderson, I looked for Cincinnati West, and her middle initial was O, by the way. I still don't know what the O stands for. And Leanne Flat with no success. I found William Woodis died 1913. There was 3 Williams known to me. William H., my ancestor, born 1818. His son, William R. Sr., born 1844. And his son, William R. Jr., born in 1875. I was sure it must have been William R. Woodis Sr., who would be about 69 in 1913. As my ancestor William H. Woodis would have been about 95, and William R. Woodis Jr. would only be 38. I sent off for the death certificate for that William H. Woodis Sr. to just find out who his mother's maiden name was. When it came, I almost fell over. It was William H. Woodis, who was 95 years old. His father was listed as Littleberry, and his mother as Levana, as I knew. But wait, her maiden name was listed as Blaylock. That I did not know. This was just plain luck to get her maiden name. I had already decided this William died between 1860 and 1870, since he was not in the household with his wife Nancy and their children in the 1870 U.S. Census. I later learned he had gotten a divorce before 1870, a rare occurrence for any of my family and during those years. He went to Illinois and came back by 1900, where he was found in the U.S. Census with a different wife. Here is yet another case of assuming something, in this case that someone had died. My son James enrolled in the new statewide Indiana 4-H Genealogy Project when he was in 4-H, with the second year asking for photos of ancestors and other family members' tombstones, including name of cemetery and where it was located. A pretty big project. With 99% of our ancestors buried in Kentucky in various counties, we went to Will Library and made a list of where we needed to go and whose graves we wanted to photograph. It was going to be a major undertaking since the counties and the cemeteries were spread out all over the state. Give me the water. Excuse me, I have to have some liquid here. Lubricate the vocal cords, I guess. Let me take that off. It was going to take several weekends to complete by going through all the different counties across the state. As a good genealogical researcher, planning would be the key to success. Doesn't that sound good? I'm impressed. At Willard, I found a table for us. I sent James back to the shelves to get the cemetery inscription books. I noticed a book on the table that had not been taken back to the rack. racks. Ohio County, Kentucky Cemetery inscriptions, annotated. A book I did not know existed. There were only 2 books in the library for that county that I knew of. One had the marriage of William Allen Kimball to Hannah Haynes in 1825. I had not traveled to Ohio County to see what I could find to go back further on this Haynes line. It's kind of south of Owensboro. It's not that far away. I should have went. So this new book might have some Kimball or Haynes in it. Whoa! There were a whole lot of Kimball and Haynes in it. A couple, 3 pages. They were buried in this county. I found out what annotated meant, by the way, as there were added notes to most who were listed. Hannah Haynes was listed as the daughter of John Barton Haynes and Rhoda Huff. Excuse me. That is where the name Rhoda came from. Rhoda Kimball, my second great-grandmother, was the daughter of William and Hannah Kimball. She was named after her grandmother. I decided to take the next day off from work. And James and I try to do that a lot of times, but this time I told my bosses I had to go check on my genealogy. So they said, go, get out of here. Because they knew how much I liked genealogy. James and I went to do some real genealogical research. We found so much stuff in one day that it was just a gold mine. I copied about 400 sheets of data on a copy machine. No time to copy by hand. Going back 6 generations on one line to Captain John Knowles, who died in 1675, adding 27 new ancestors' names and 6 new surnames. This was all very well documented. It was full sheets of wills or deeds or whatever. One of the items I copied in those 400 sheets was copies made from the original John Barton Haynes Bible. Mom's second cousin was the expert of the Catholic side of the family. I was telling her one day all about Mom's Protestant side of the family. We're kind of half-breeds there. Half of Mom's family is Protestant and the other half is Catholic. And there's all kinds of crazy things out of that. And I was telling her all about the Protestant side of her family and the cool stuff we had found, including John Barton Haynes' Bible. She said that she had seen that Bible. She knew Old Man Wood, that's one of my family members, who had it at his home, and she would take me there. I was holding the Bible in my hands in just 15 minutes. It had several more pages of stuff, plus there was another Bible. This is the only line of my family that had a Bible, family Bible. We made photocopies of it all. Lucky, you betcha. Of course, I should have gone to the Ohio County Courthouse when I first found that marriage record instead of waiting for Lady Luck to eventually cross my path. But it turned out okay. One day I got this email inquiry just out of the blue. She was wanting to know if my Flat family was related to her Anderson Fowler Flat. Well, my great-grandmother was Mary Elizabeth Flat, daughter of David K. Flat, and his wife, Leanne, maiden name unknown. Leanne is a story, no, more than a story, a whole book of my misadventures trying to discover her maiden name. I mean, I tried everything under the sun. Anyway, back to this email that had no dates, places, or anything except for this man's full name. I did have a son for David and Leanne with the initials AF. There was a period of time in the 1860 census, I think, maybe 1870, that they just listed the children's name as initials, and that's it. So it just had AF. So I asked her to give me more information, which would reply that he had lived in White Plains, Muhlenberg County, Kentucky, about 50 miles north of where my Flats lived in Christian County. He was born about 1884 and died in Wayne County, Michigan. I wrote back that he sounded like the son of my David Flat. She responded with, he was the son of David King Flat, and Annie Lee Richardson. Richardson. Wow. How did she know this? She said it is on his death certificate. Believe me, I had been doing what I call backdoor or side door research for years, trying to get info from researching the siblings. In this family, I could not find what happened to any of the siblings. But I sure got a lucky break from Anderson's family. That was really I'll never forget that time. Polly Flatt was my great-grandmother's sister. I had nothing about her in my computer database. I went to her page in my Family Tree Maker program. That's an old, some of you probably recognize that program. And clicked on the search the web on Ancestry.com button. Their first choice was Polly Crabtree, which sounded familiar. I quickly checked my old notebooks, and I had her married to William L. Crabtree, and that my grandmother had lived with them part of her childhood. The first choice on Ancestry was an exact photocopy of her death certificate with everything I needed to know about her. Birth, death, cemetery, father's name, mother's maiden name, Richardson. And it listed the informant as my grandmother, Viola West. And there's a little aside there. My grandmother, when I asked her about Leanne Flatt and some of these others, that was her family, she'd go, oh, I don't know. That was a long, long time ago. They're all dead now. Thanks, Grandma. So anyhow, another lucky break. But see, my grandmother was withholding the fact that she was the informant for one that I really wanted to know about. But oh well. This is an obvious problem of not continuing a quest for one of Leanne's kids and to see if her maiden name was listed. Don Counts from Tri-State Genealogical Society sent me a link one day to a neat site that suggested you can use wildcard surname searches for military markers placed by the Veterans Administration, which made me think about doing the same for Find a Grave, especially with Flatt and Woodus. I found an Annie Lee Flatt buried in Tennessee. I figured this was probably not my great-great-grandmother's grave. When I went to that cemetery site on the internet, it listed the correct date of birth and looked reasonable for her death. I checked for other Flatts in this small cemetery where she was at, finding her son Roe Tilden Flatt with the right date of birth. I thought to myself, how many Roe Tilden Flatts born in September 1876 could there possibly be? I have visited her grave in Tennessee, and it lists her as the wife of David Flatt. So it kind of guarantees that one. None of this was using genealogical research skills, but rather just plain luck. This is a good tip for use with genealogical search engines on the internet to use that wildcard approach. I use it a lot now. It doesn't always give you somebody, but they'll give you whatever surname you have, everyone that they got. And you just got to go through the list and see what you can find. I walk the dog down our long block every day. One Sunday, one of the men asked me to sit in the rocker on his porch because he wanted to visit. He had a few good tales he wanted to share. After the tales came the usual complaining about the spouse stories. And this one had a lot. He always complained about his wife. He said she spends too much time on the computer. I told him he sounded like my wife. She's always complaining about me. He did admit that some of it was for work, where she worked, and it was important for her to do. And then he said she does a lot of good by helping people with her database on the Carter family of Perry County, Indiana. I stated that I did not know she did genealogy. He said just on the Carter family. I remembered that my wife, Becky, had some Carter ancestors in her birth family from Perry County. John called his wife out, and we talked a little. She said, seems we were talking about the same family. I ran home quickly. It's just a couple doors down. Printed out the info I had on Becky's Carter family and rushed back. Donna, the neighbor, said, "Oh my, Becky and I are cousins through the Carters and the Quick family too." This was Becky's second great-grandfather, William Carter, that I could only find so much on at Willow Library and had not had a chance to go to Perry County to see what I could find in the courthouse, etc. Donna handed over about 60 pages of data on these families, deeds, wills, tax lists, all kinds of birth, marriage, death records, etc. You have to admit that learning all of this from a neighbor for over 20 years now, only 2 doors down, is just plain luck. You really have to admit that. Granted that I could have traveled to Perry County Courthouse and got most of what Donna gave me, but I was glad I was so lucky to get this from my neighbor. I was going through all this Christian County, Kentucky, U.S. Census microfilm at Willow Library for Amos Phipps. I wanted to learn more about him, so I thought I'd check the census records. I found him in the 1810, 1830, and 1840 census, but I did not find him in 1820. I looked in all of the surrounding counties with no luck. Then one day, just by plain luck, I found him as Phipps, F-I-P-S, while searching for flat family records. This reminded me of one of those research skills to use every possible variation you could think of to find someone, and to use phonetics especially. Phipps with an F sounds exactly the same as Phipps with PH. Speaking of Phipps, when I was at the Christian County, Kentucky courthouse, after I learned that the records were saved from the Civil War fire, I had copied marriages out of the marriage record books from the first Phipps marriage to the 1900s. There were about 30 of them. I had no idea if any of them were my ancestors or even relatives. I just thought I might not get back for some time. A few years later, I kept finding this Ann Phipps in land records, etc., and wondered just who she was. A few more years, I learned that she was the wife of my Amos Phipps. I remember telling Becky that I wished I knew what her maiden name was. This was while I was browsing through my miscellaneous files, which is, about that big compared to the other files. I ran across that list of Phipps marriages, with the very first marriage in 1806 being Amos Phipps and Ann Simpson. So I found out her last name. I am not sure if that was just plain luck or just very poor research technique. Now the part that you all was waiting for. In conclusion, after you have exhausted your scientific research skills and what you have learned from years of experience, plus your best Sherlock Holmes techniques, and took the time to actually check the records, sometimes you still need to be just plain lucky to find what you are looking for. Luck is no substitute for good research skills and detective mentality. It is just an unpredictable, nice surprise. I have been very lucky many times, but I wonder, is there someone in the family that has died helping me, or is it just the luck of the Irish? And that's my presentation. Hope you learned something from it. Okay, what I got to do, Vanessa? Yeah, I'm done, yes. Yes, I'm done. I'm going to fire my public.